Welcome to the Reset Mantra. I'm your host, Sabina Maharshan. This podcast aims to support your journey in resetting your mind, body, and soul by sharing insightful stories and conversations with experts and guests from diverse backgrounds. I am thrilled to welcome back a very special guest. Our previous conversation left a lasting impact, and we couldn't wait to continue our dialogue. In today's episode, we're exploring a topic that many of us can relate to on some level, the journey of turning trauma into triumph. It's a story of resilience, growth, and ultimately finding strength in the face of adversity. I am joined once again by Catherine Veronica. So without further ado, let's dive into today's conversation and discover how to turn trauma into triumph. Welcome back to the episode, Catherine. So happy to have you.
So happy to be here.
Let me start by asking you, historically, women are glorified for being nurturing, loving, forgiving, and kind and resilient in the face of adversity. However, sometimes this process can require suppressing of emotions and avoiding vulnerability. Tell us about why women first go through this process, and is it just women who have this process of dealing with emotions and putting themselves last and thinking about other people? Or how can someone express themselves in a healthy way, be vulnerable, and be very open about what their emotions are?
I love that. That's a great question. So as a human being, we have both feminine and masculine energy, right? Everybody has both. And so feminine energy is very nurturing. It is very giving, right? And many times when somebody is putting themselves last, it's because their masculine side isn't really developed, right? And that's what we really need to do in order to be our best selves, is to develop both sides of our energy. And for males as well, right? For males, they really want to develop their feminine energy, because the most successful people have both their masculine and their feminine sides really well developed, so that you can hop in and out of whichever energy is needed in the moment, right? So, if you're over giving and you're not allowing yourself to receive back, you want to look at that, right? And maybe hop into a little bit of that masculine energy and draw clearer boundaries, right? And bring a little bit more of that warrior spirit out, a little bit more of maybe somebody who needs to be more, delegate more, right? Or maybe you need to figure out how to be more of a provider, right? How can I provide more for myself? How can I provide for others in such a way where I'm taking care of myself first, right? Because the warriors of the tribe, right, they have to take care of themselves as much as they are protecting the tribe. They have to take care of themselves, right? So that masculine energy, that warrior side of you can be developed, and that female energy as well.
Can you help me understand a little bit about how to make sure that we understand what our feminine and masculine energy are, so that we can use them in a balanced and healthy way?
Absolutely. So feminine energy is very soft, loving, giving, nurturing, flowing, right? And masculine energy is very focused, right? It's very a thrusting energy. It's a powerful provider energy, right? And most of the time, women who, let's say, are in business are very much using their masculine energy, right? They're telling people what to do, and they're very focused. They're goal oriented and driven, right? And so you're kind of narrowing in on one thing, right? That's typically a masculine energy and a masculine mind, right? Men tend to focus on one thing at a time. They mean what they say. They're very clear. They're very direct, right? They have their goal and their target. And that really does come, if you think about it, going back to the warriors, the hunters, right? They had to be very focused to get that that animal to bring home for dinner, right? Whereas women, we were more caring for the tribe, right? We were the gatherers, and we would talk amongst each other, right? We had to kind of talk amongst each other to make sure that the collective was together, right? That's why women, we kind of tend to like to gossip a little bit, right? Because that's how our ancestors worked. And in the fields while we're gathering, we were talking and spreading information. And we were the caretakers of the children. So our relationship side, our communication is very developed, right? So so that's why you want to develop both, right? So you want to be able to communicate. So for a male, you want to be able to learn how to communicate and learn how to think about everybody and everybody's feelings, and really expand yourself to be that gatherer, that nurturer. And for a female, you also want to be able to focus, right? To be able to set clear goals, to mean what you say, and to have a clear outcome so that you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve. Because if you think about it, right, when you ask a female a question like, how are you today? Right? And we say fine. What does that really mean? Right? There's a whole bunch of unpacking there, right? It depends on how we say it, the mood that we say it in, right? Most of the time, if we say I'm fine, we're not fine. And for a male, if a male says I'm fine, he really means I'm fine, right? And so those are just a few examples. And how do you know? It's really about what results that you're getting, right? If you're in a situation and something is feeling like something's missing or something's off, you just want to check in with yourself. Like, what do I need to develop? Right? How am I being? What does this situation call for? Does this situation call for more openness? Does it call for more compassion? Does it call for more awareness? Or does it call for more focus? Right? Does it call for more more active energy? Right? And that's the way that you balance yourself.
So how does this conditioning for women affect how we show up in relationship, be it friendship, romantic relationship, family? How does it affect in general?
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful question. And you know what? The truth is, it's not just for women, right? We all have a type of conditioning. It's just a different condition. And it really just depends, right? In particular, your family, right? And so our tribe, our family, really, they instill different generational patterns and cycles within us, right? We talked a little bit about that before. And so it really goes back to even when you are born, right? When you're born, or when you're in your mother's womb, rather, it starts then. You are really connected to your mother's emotions. So when a woman who's pregnant, when she is in anxiety or under stress, that literally cuts off the oxygen supply to the baby. So you are literally being tied to your mother's emotions. You start to learn that when mom is stressed, that almost means death to me. It's very similar, like being excommunicated from the tribe. It feels like death. And so from then, we're already being tied to, I have to make mom happy in order to survive, right? So if we have to make mom happy in order to survive, what are the things that make mom happy, right? What are the standards that mom has set that she is going to be happy with, right? And that comes down to, sometimes mom is only happy if dad is happy, right? Or if, grandma and grandpa are happy, or, the culture that we're in are happy. What are those standards that have been set? And so that's where it all starts, truly. And that's what we are all learning to break right now, because we're in a modern society, but again, we have this really old brain, right? And we tend to go into fight and flight mode. And in that fight or flight mode, we can get anxiety and depression and all these different things based on the circumstances that are around us, right? And just like, there's no longer a saber-toothed a tiger chasing us, but the pressures of having to conform to this conditioning feel the same. And so it's just a different set of conditions for both men and women. And we particularly are more sensitive to it because we are women, right? There are definitely men who understand women's issues as well. But because we're women, we understand the conditioning that is created for women. But men have their own set of pressures, right? I work with a lot of men as well. Even though I specialize in empowering women, I do have clients that are men, and there's pressure on them as well, right? To be great contributors, to be providers, to have money. And it's one thing that I've recognized is that in American society right now, I believe we're failing our boys, right? There is so much more emphasis on going to the club, right? Sleeping with a lot of women, being with the strippers, having, fame and the nice car and all of that stuff. And it's not that there wasn't prestige back in the days for men, but there definitely was a different time when, having a wife was that was something that was very, like, it was looked up upon, right? Whereas now it's like, how many girlfriends can I get? There was, back in the days, it was, you gave your girlfriend your jacket and you pinned her, and there was a courting that went on, and men kind of had this idea that building a strong home then would help to make them successful. And this then actually does affect us women too now, right? Because not only are we in a modern society where now we are working for ourselves and we can do all the things that men can do, but now we're kind of coming up against the challenge that men don't necessarily always have the same values as we do, right? So now we have this pressure to have a family and to achieve these things, but then now we're looking for a partner that wants those same things. And society is not setting us up to do that. So if you talk to some of the young boys that I talk with, or the men that I talk with, they're really searching for role models to help them to learn and to grow and to be that strong contributor and provider. And it is a lot of pressure for them, just like it's a lot of pressure for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, me coming from a South Asian background and being an Asian American immigrant, I think I can resonate to somewhat your experience was, how male in our society is seen as a provider and females more of the nurturing and caring, loving aspect. But in today's world, women are earning, they're independent, they're financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually independent. So the concept of having a partner has changed, definitely evolved over time. I think this, what I was thinking about when you were talking about this was this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where that tops here. I think it's self-actualization.
Yes.
Now, where we are thinking beyond basic needs, beyond safety, security, we are thinking of partnership as someone who has similar values, goals, and someone who we can learn with and grow with, make progress, right? So that definition definitely has evolved. So tell me about, in today's modern day society, how does the feminine and masculine dynamic impact the relationships, especially the romantic relationships that we have in our life?
That's another great question. So, I talk with a lot of women, and one of the main reasons that women come to me is because they're having relationship issues. Even though we might branch off into career and health and wellness and then end up going into generational cycles and where these things came from, usually the primary issue that they come to me with is some kind of relationship issue. Because everybody wants love. We all have a need for love and for connection. And so when they come to me, it's either that they are dealing with a breakup, or they're having an issue with their partner, or they're hung up on their ex, or some version of that. And when we look at those issues, it really boils down to feminine and masculine energy, and the feminine's needs and the masculine's needs, as well as how we learned how to be, right? So for the feminine, what ends up happening often is that we end up becoming very closed off when we're in our masculine, right? When we're in our feminine, we're open. And a feminine energy definitely has a need to be seen and to be understood. Whereas masculine energy has a strong desire to be admired and to be respected. And so when a woman starts closing off to a man, then he can no longer feel that, right? And when a woman feels like she's not being seen or understood by the man, then that's when the closing off happens, right? So it ends up being this cycle. And when a woman also starts closing off, she can sometimes start to judge, or to coach sometimes, right? And a man can often perceive that as like he's no longer her hero, right? And men have a strong desire to be that hero. They really do want to make us happy, right? And so when they're starting to feel like they're being judged or controlled, or they're being closed off to, then there's this pattern where they start distancing themselves and pulling away. And then that really affects our need for certainty, right? And when we don't feel safe anymore, that's when we start closing ourselves off and pulling away. And so that's why this masculine and feminine energy really is important when you're in a relationship, so that you can recognize, like, am I being open? Am I closing off, right? Am I making my partner feel desired and respected and admired, right? When I'm talking about my needs, am I talking about it in a way where I'm empowering him so that he can show up as my hero, right? And then, for a male, am I making her feel safe, right? Am I making her feel seen? Am I making her feel understood and supported, so that this cycle doesn't continue? And we learn this from our parents, right? We learn this from our parents, from our grandparents, and our family, right? The one thing that I teach, that I always want my clients to walk away from, is this basic teaching, which is that feelings and behaviors are not the same thing, right?
Feelings and behaviors are not the same thing.
They are not the same thing.
Hmm.
So we always hear all the time, like, if he could have, if he would have, if she loved me, she should have, she would have, right? And that's actually not the truth, right?
Really?
No, because at the end of the day, we all have the possibility of feelings. Everybody has the possibility to love, right? Everybody has the possibility to feel deeply. However, what we do with that love, the behavior, is completely different. Some people are taught to lean into love, right? Some people are taught to run from love. Some people are taught to show love. Some people are taught to withdraw their love, right? And it really just boils down to what we've seen growing up in our families, right? And so if you have a relationship with your parent where your parent maybe gave you the silent treatment, or maybe they over apologize, that's typically how you're going to end up being, right? Or sometimes you end up being the complete opposite of that and overcompensating for what it is that happened in your childhood, because our parents are our first love relationships. When we're younger, we're absorbing everything like a sponge. And so the way that our parents love us is the way that we end up loving. And the way that our parents talk to us becomes our inner conscious. It becomes our inner voice, the way that we talk to ourselves. right? And so then we move into relationships and we're talking to ourselves in relation to our partner. And that's where the he should have, she could have, all these judgmental thoughts start to come up because they've been ingrained in us for so long. And so the first thing to do there is just to have awareness that that's happening, and then say, are the things that I'm doing, these behaviors that I'm doing, are they in alignment with what my feelings are and with what I want to create as an outcome in my relationship?
So it sounds like, how we show up in relationship is not just about the partner that we're with. It could have been our conditioning from our childhood, what we learned from our parents, how our relationship with them was, how our parents' relationship with each other was. There's a lot that we take up on us, within us. And when we get into this romantic, any kind of relationship with a partner, our partner could merely just be a mirror who is showing us who we are, and maybe they are triggering us, and at that time it's not them triggering, it's probably parts within us that we need to heal from our childhood, from our relationship with parents. A lot of time, when in relationship, it's easy to see the other person as a reason of, me not being happy, or I don't feel a certain way. But it seems like that self-awareness is a key part in creating that harmonized relationship. In your personal journey, through your relationship, how have you seen your own journey of trauma and then converted that into triumph? I know we touched a little bit about this in our previous episode as well, but I wanted to know from relationship perspective.
Oh, this is about to get juicy. So I am currently in a place where I have the most amazing male friendships. The men that I'm dating and have dated as of recently were on a completely different level, right? Where I was in the beginning of my journey, right? And a lot of things what I tell women is when they come to me and they talk about all these painful relationships that they've been in, it's not that that's your fault, right? It's not your fault. And however, the common denominator is always you, right? So even if you are not somebody who, let's say, is going back to the mirror analogy, maybe, you attracted somebody as a cheater, but you say, well, I'm not a cheater, right? But the thing is, you picked that cheater, right? So your picker is what needs repairing. Your chooser, your selector, that mechanism in you is what needs repairing, right? And it all again goes back to what we feel comfortable with. Often what happens is we start replaying the circumstances that we have had in our childhood because we want a new outcome. So subconsciously, we start replaying things that we want to heal. So, if you feel like you were ignored or abandoned by a parent, then you may actually end up subconsciously picking somebody who has these ignoring or abandoned qualities, because if you can get a different outcome in this relationship, then it validates you, that you were not the problem. And so that's what we tend to do in relationships. And even for myself, I was guilty. I was guilty of picking partners that had qualities that were playing out some of my childhood traumas. And it wasn't until I started truly healing my childhood and looking at my, how I was raised and how my mom was raised and how my dad was raised, and bringing the healing into that space, that I was able to reframe those things and turn my pain into my power and my wounds into wisdom. Then in that space, then I was able to pick people newly, right? And, I had quite a few traumatic relationships, my first ever relationship, it was actually a really great relationship in many, many ways. And at the same time, there was cheating that happened. And then when we broke up, it was very devastating to me. And he ended up being with somebody else that kind of overlapped with our relationship. And that really had a big effect on me. And then I mentioned, I think in a little bit in our last episode, how I then picked my next real long relationship, significant relationship, was with somebody who ended up having schizophrenia. And there was just a lot of controlling and me having to really put their needs before mine. And then I went into a relationship with somebody for 8 years who I personally believe, this has never been diagnosed, but somebody who really used sex and porn to overcome his childhood traumas, right? That's kind of how he learned to cope through his childhood stuff, especially as a young teen, right? He lost a parent very early in his teenagehood, and he got that loving connection through having sex with women. And so there was like many, many years of cheating and finding another person and another issue and another issue. Um and so it took a lot. It was really at the end of that relationship where I decided I have to go on my own another healing journey, right? This time it was healing relationships, right? I had gone on the healing my physical body, and I went on a mindset journey, and now it was really time to heal relationships. And to speak to what you kind of touched upon earlier about women putting their needs last sometimes, and I think we talked about last time on the last episode about the I am statements. So one of the things that kept me in this long relationship when I kept on finding him cheating over and over was because I told myself I don't give up on people, right? That's who I am. I don't give up on people. And so I really was trying to stay in this relationship to make it through the long haul. And to talk a little bit about overcompensating, that's where I was overcompensating, because my parents, they didn't stay together, right? My mom and dad were divorced when I think I was about 3, or maybe it was a little bit earlier than that, but something like that, right? And then my mom got remarried, and had another baby with my stepdad. I think I was 13 when my sister was born. And so I got to actually witness his divorce too. He came with my stepbrother, my stepsister, and so his divorce was quite difficult, and I got to witness that. And so there was something in me that said, I'm going to do this differently, right? I am going to make this work. And I started to accept a lot of the things that he did wrong simply because I didn't want to abandon the relationship. Right? I was dealing with my own issues of abandonment from my parents getting divorced, and I had witnessed what I witnessed. And so I made a decision, and that decision wasn't truly serving me because I wasn't taking all things into consideration, right? Because there's no universal rule for relationships, right? There's concepts, but you really have to apply them differently based on the people in the relationship and what they have experienced, right? So even with the masculine energy and the feminine energy and everything that we've been talking about, you really have to look at each specific case to see what's actually happening, right? And how do we apply these things in such a way where both parties, the male and the female, where it's serving them and the relationship is healthy and it's serving you for your greatest good, right? And another thing is that, we have different types of partners in our life, right? I like to talk a lot about soulmates, because women love soulmates, right? One of the things that I'm always talking about with my clients is when they come to me about, I really thought he was my soulmate. I thought that he was the one, right? And the truth is that we have many different types of soulmates. There's not just one type, right? There's a the type of soulmate that is very karmic, where it comes to teach you lessons, right? To have you learn about yourself. There's the type of soulmate that's transitionary, that's meant to maybe awaken pieces of you, right? That maybe you were sleeping, maybe you were in a relationship that was not so good, and this new relationship comes to give you passion and bring art into your life and new things, and it helps to transition you out of an old relationship, or maybe through a period of your life where you needed that. We have, life partners, right? And even with life partners, people think like, if I find my life partner, then I'll be with them forever and ever. But that's not true either. I know many people who maybe were married for 20, 30 years, that would be considered a life partner. And then they divorce and find somebody else that they live the rest of their life with, right? And so, we really need to expand our minds, because all of it is okay, right? We come here on this planet to live out our soul assignments at Earth School, right? This is a school, and each relationship that we have is an assignment. It's helping to evolve our spirit, evolve our soul, and to grow and perfect our souls. And so there's never a relationship that's a waste of time, right? We can learn from each and gain some type of wisdom, clarity, power from each particular relationship.
I think that was a very eye-opening and very, very thought-provoking insight in the way we normally see and think about relationships. And I've told my now ex this as well, that I think of him as an angel that I needed, who led me to myself. He is a crucial part of my self-discovery, and I will always be so grateful and loving. I will always have this grace and compassionate for that chapter of my life. So I think relationship for me now that I see, if someone were to tell me this in my 20s, I would probably have not understood. But now coming into my 30s and deciding to choose relationship, and it's not just about me being a woman thinking, okay, I deserve better or I need to do this for me. It's also about men deserve better as well. We touched on men's mental health, and I'm a very great advocate. I love my father, my brother, men in my family, and I want to make sure we are, as women, also thinking about not just men, any gender, mental health into this perspective that we all deserve better. And something that we can do is to, when we say we love someone, is also to logically think that it's just not our selfish desires. It's also the people who we encounter as various kind of partners, soulmates, relationships, right? So I think that was a very eye-opening concept on the way we look at relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you say about your relationship and how that you love your ex and the way that he gave you so much, right? And that is the best way to end a relationship, is to release it with love, I like to call it, right? And even with all the relationships that I talked about, I absolutely love every single one of them, right? And people will look at me like, what do you mean? You can talk about all these negative things that happen, but how could you still love that person? And the truth is that if you truly love somebody, you're always going to love them. And that's okay. Right? People think that once you're not with somebody any longer, that you're supposed to stop loving them. And that's not true. Love doesn't disappear. It simply transforms, right? It's just kind of that, like that saying, like matter does not get created or destroyed, right? It simply just changes form. It's the same thing for love, right? When you love somebody, you will always love them. It just gets transformed into something different, right? You go from being in love and having that passionate kind of love to maybe just going to familial love, right? Like a family member, or maybe it's more like an acquaintanceship, or that you can admire that person or love the aspects of them that that helped you in your life, right?
So Catherine, tell us about when, let's say, sticking to the narrative of a relationship, when someone ends in relationship, whatever the reason is, either the ending happens to them or they're the one initiating the ending. Tell us about how can someone in this state, right, when they're grieving a loss of their loved one, maybe grieving parts of themselves who they lost in this process and in the process of creating a new identity, because when you're in relationship with someone for a really long time, you associate your identity with them. So when you're separating, we kind of question, who am I without the other person, right? That it's a very period of being lost, and how do we find ourselves back? I'm sure there's a lot of, every person's journey is different as to how they heal themselves, and I'm a firm believer that our body and mind is designed to be self-healing if only we allow it to be.
Yes.
But tell us about how do you help someone get through that phase of trauma and turn that into triumph? What kind of things they need to do on a daily basis to make sure they are healing and get to that ideal outcome they want to?
Yes. Well, it is a very traumatic thing to go through when you go through a breakup. You know, there's two things that they say are the worst types of pain, and that's a toothache and a heartache. Right? It feels like excruciating pain. Right? So when somebody is initially going through that, the truth is there's absolutely nothing that you can do about taking away that pain. Like that, it's something you really just have to let time heal. And people hate that answer, but it's the truth. And the thing about that is that no matter what kind of heartache that you're going through, you have to feel it to heal it. People just want to skip over that part and say, like, how do I just make myself feel better now? Right? But the truth is, you have to feel that pain in order to heal whatever is there. Right? And there's another saying that I love, that it's, you have to see the dirt in a house in order to clean it, right? So sometimes you have to look at these negative things so that you can clean it up, so that you can reframe it, so that you can move forward. So the first tip that I give somebody who's going through a breakup is don't rush the process, right? I know that you want to get out of pain because we'll do anything to get out of pain in that moment. And so the first thing to do is just start writing it down so that you can get it out of your body and into something that's going to start to transform you, right? So journal. That's one of the first things. Write down all your feelings. Many women, when they're going through a breakup, it could be if they initiated or maybe the other person initiated it, journal it out. A lot of times you want to just like talk to them or call them, and often that's not going to serve you, right? Whether you're trying to get that person back or they're going to come back to you or they want to, that type of energy is not magnetic, and it's actually just going to make the problem worse. It's going to come across very needy energy. It's going to come across very negative and low vibrational. So if you are in that space, start writing it out so you can start to transmute it, right? Even if you have to write a letter, like if it's to them, and just talk to them like if you were talking to them on the phone, that truly does start to help. And once you've done that, you can then start to see certain patterns in your thinking. You can get a lot more clarity. And then I recommend for actually the way to start feeling truly better after that is to do EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping. That is one of the best ways to get energy out of your body, right? So, you know, you can start with even tapping too if you need to calm down and become a little bit more resourceful, because a breakup is putting you into fight or flight, just as much as any other traumatic event is. And sometimes we may even need to calm down in order to journal. So you can journal first and then do EFT, or do EFT and then journal, whichever you like. But EFT will really start to soothe you and will start to get your body out of that fight or flight, and make you more resourceful. So then you can even continue tapping on all the different problems that either happened in the relationship or even during the breakup, things that he may have said or he may have done, or whatever it is, right? And then another piece that adds to healing is then do the Ho'oponopono prayer, right? Where you're really bringing the divine, it's the divine forgiveness and love, right? The prayer is, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, right? And I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And when you do that prayer, it really has miracle effects. And sometimes people get a little caught up on the words because, let's say, the beginning part, I'm sorry. They say, well, I don't have anything to be sorry for. Well, you don't always have to look at it that I have to be sorry to the person, right? You can be sorry for, to yourself for abandoning your needs. You can be sorry that maybe you didn't have clear enough boundaries or whatever it is, right? You just want to tap into some emotion of asking the universe for forgiveness.
Mm.
And then when you say, please forgive me, you're really allowing then the grace of the universe then to actually give you that forgiveness, right? It can be the forgiveness for yourself for doing something wrong. It can be, the forgiveness of accepting something. It can even be the forgiveness to that person. You can send them forgiveness, right? It depends on where you are on your healing journey. And then thank you, right? Just coming from the space of gratitude, there's something to be thankful for in every moment, even in a breakup, right? It's teaching you something about yourself. It's teaching yourself something about others. It's developing resources within you. Maybe you're reading books that you never would have read or tapping into concepts that you never would have known about before. And then I love you, right? You can love yourself. Sometimes you can even tell the other person that you still love them, right? Sometimes that's something that just needs to be said and put into the universe. And as you go through that prayer and you think of these different concepts, it really has miraculous healing effects on yourself and your relationship, whether it's continuing and this is just a rough spot or it's completely come to an end.
I think everything you mentioned about, what someone going through a traumatic experience, such as a breakup, especially from a long-term relationship, can go through, I think journaling, like you mentioned, has definitely worked so much for me. I've always journaled since I was a kid. There's a lot of uncertainty and unknown that I was walking into. So journaling has worked for me to process my emotions, soothe myself, and reparent myself through my journaling. And I think avoiding of emotions that you mentioned when we are going through a pain is something that we naturally tend to do. And in my own experience, I've realized that, just like you said, you have to go right through it. If you keep avoiding those emotions, your healing journey will probably be longer. I think for me, what really worked was having that intentional mindset of, okay, I know I'm hurting. It's going to be painful. I'm going to give myself an hour a day to cry, dwell about past, ruminate, Then after that 1 hour is off, I used to put timer. So after that 1 hour is off, I would get up, get myself out of the house, go to gym, do something uncomfortable. And that's how I figured cold plunge, very, very uncomfortable. So I intentionally put myself into spots and situations where I knew I've never done before, and be very, very self-aware that I'm staying in this flow of emotion, and my emotions are aligning with what I'm thinking. If I'm thinking I'm a happy person, or I'm doing better, I'm making sure that how that being better would feel in my body and practicing that. So I think those little tasks that you do each moment compounds to a bigger effort that contributes to your overall healing. That's just my experience that I wanted to share. And like you said, healing
Yes.
definitely is never really linear, but we always come back and get re-anchored to the core of who we are, and, come back home to ourselves in one way or the other. And then you have a whole course around, how you help men, women around dealing with difficulties in life, as a spiritual advisor, as a resilience coach. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about their healing journey or all the things that you offer in your coaching service?
Come find me on Instagram. right? I'm on Instagram. You can send me a message. I have a link to my Magic Vibes gratitude workbook and a free masterclass on manifesting, where it's really just about choosing the frequency, right? Choosing the frequency that you want to vibrate out, finding the things in your life to be grateful for, because that's where the secret sauce is. It really is. That's where once you tap into the feelings of appreciation, then everything else will end up finding you. All the healing tools, all the healing techniques, and everything that you need to progress ends up being attracted to you.
Catherine, is there anything that I haven't asked, but you think it's important for people to know, especially when dealing with a breakup or relationship and changing that trauma into triumph? Is there anything that you would like to say to listeners?
I think we touched upon it a little bit, but I just want to reinforce that the relationship that we have, whether we're breaking up or going through a really rough spot, it never really stems from the actual relationship we're in. It always goes back to the patterns that you learned in childhood. So, what you want to learn to do is truly reparent yourself, right? Really learn to give yourself the things that your childhood self needed. Be that adult that you needed your little self to be, right? And if you really come from that perspective and you say, hey, listen, honey, I have your back, right? And I'm here to be with you, and you can reparent yourself through those, traumatic experiences and be what you need now, that will have tremendous healing effects on your future relationship, right? If you heal the root cause, then you heal the symptoms. It's just like the body, right? If you heal the root cause of whatever's bothering you in your body or whatever symptoms are coming up, then you heal all the symptoms, right? And it's the same thing with relationships. If you're having problems in your relationships, that's a symptom. It's not the root cause. The root cause are the thoughts, the patterns, and the feelings that you're having that derived from when you were younger, because that's where they were created. So if you can reparent yourself and come up with different identity statements, the different I am affirmations, reframe your past, talk to yourself differently, give yourself love and compassion, then all the things in your present life will fall into place.
That's so beautiful. It sounds like, so in order for us to have a beautiful relationship with someone else, we have to have a wonderful, harmonious, and healed relationship with ourselves first.
Yes.
So where you have to heal your inner child and make sure it has the love, attention that it needs. So it's very important to pay attention to what our needs are and develop that loving relationship and with yourself first.
That's exactly it. That is the formula. Any relationship, whether it comes to food or money or a significant other, it's always a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself.
Catherine, thank you so much. I had a really great time talking to you about this topic. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun to be here.
Thank you for joining me this week on The Reset Mantra. I am Sabina Maharjan. Join me again next week, and in the meantime, please subscribe and leave me a review. If you have someone who you think will be great on the show, please get in touch and find me and the podcast on Instagram at I am Sabina Maharjan and at The Reset Mantra. I'm so looking forward to next week, and I'll catch you then.